4 SEC teams that are out of contention, coaches being on the hot seat, and really finding out how maybe a quarter of the teams in the conference that your favorite team is in, how things might shake out there. You know, you have a chance for these teams to pretty much, these 4 teams to pretty much be outside of the SEC picture, and we're only in week 5. Let's roll through some of them. Kentucky plays Ole Miss this week. And listen, the reason I bring them up first is because the offseason for Kentucky was about as crazy as I feel like Kentucky can get without a big-time scandal. You know, I look at Kentucky and say, well, their head coach almost left in December to go to Texas A&M. And during the season, Mark Stoops was calling out the boosters saying, you're not giving me enough money to get really good personnel in here, and that's why we stink, only for them to actually give you the money, and then you go get that personnel and you still stink. If Mark Stoops loses to Ole Miss this week, does some chaos start happening in Lexington? Now, I know what you're going to say, Blake. He's had some bad season. Well, he had a bad season last year. Now, he's brought him to more success than anybody in Kentucky football's history, pretty much. And I don't think they're going to walk away from him. But I do think things could start really getting bad in Kentucky if he keeps losing. Guys, there's a chance that he's going to face 3 SEC teams and he can't score. His offense can't score a touchdown against a Power 4 opponent. If that happens, man, they're going to be brother, if you can't score touchdowns in the SEC, I don't know. That fan base, they don't forget. And your coach was out the door going to A&M. Things could get bad. I see an avenue there. Auburn plays Oklahoma. Let me ask you this question. Who is going to be under more pressure, Brent Venables or Hugh Freeze? Or who is under more pressure to win this game, Hugh Freeze or Brent Venables? I think, humbly, that it's Hugh Freeze. Because, look, Brent Venables went 9-3 last year or 10-3 last year. They had a moderately good season. I don't know if he's going to necessarily in year 1 be on the hot seat, because he won't be. Will Hugh Freeze be? You know, it's interesting because I look at Hugh Freeze and the inability that he's shown at developing quarterbacks the last 2 seasons with Peyton Thorne and now Hank Brown. Guys, did you know that they're 23rd in the country in total offense? They can't figure out what's going on at quarterback. And quite honestly, Auburn football, for what it's worth, has been somewhat of a dumpster fire ever since Malzahn left. So I look at Auburn and say, man, you're 23rd in the country in offense. You're a top 50 defense. If you had a quarterback, you would probably be close to 8-4, 9-3 winning team. And I think Auburn fans are yearning for a winner. And, man, I don't know if Peyton Thorne is going to be able to score on that defense. I really don't. I know the game's at home. I know that Oklahoma's got a lot of players out, and they do. I mean, I just don't know if they can win this game. The only way that they can win it is Oklahoma is so beat up. Their offensive line really stinks. I just feel like Auburn's going to find a way to give the game away because it's kind of the culture that they've been. Guys, this is a must-win game for Hugh Freeze. I don't know. I say must-win, but maybe not in the sense of him getting fired. He needs a win. Things are starting to on Hugh a little bit. The Michael Hawkins kid at quarterback for Oklahoma, I think actually might give them a little bit more of a chance than people are giving him credit for. Let's see what he does. Now, I do think that Auburn's a tough – guys, the first start that this kid's going to get as a true freshman is at Auburn. Doesn't mix up very well. We'll see how that goes. So, and by the way, the line is moved. I saw this, of the Hurricane. I am monitoring what's going on at Auburn. Auburn's not that far from Georgia, and that hurricane keeps shifting a little bit. So these games, we're starting to just pay attention to them. So keep an eye on that game. Last but not least, I wanted to put Mississippi State on here because they got Texas this week. But look, man, Mississippi State's in a full rebuild, right? Like, I mean, unfortunately, Mike Leach died, and they felt like they needed to hire Zach Arnett when they probably should have just gone and did a coaching search. Like, what if Kurt Cignetti at Indiana would have came here from James Madison? Like, could you have gotten him to come there and rebuild that team? I don't know. What I do know is they're in a full rebuild, and they just got $8 million to go into the portal and rebuild. They know that their season's going to stink. They know that their season's going to stink. I think, guys, that you're seeing right before your eyes of what a true, actual rebuild at a program like this has got to look like. Because they were depleted, man. Mississippi State's in trouble, and I hate it for them. I kind of really do, but I should put them on this list, but I'm not. It's actually the latter. Guys, I really think Sam Pittman needs to win here. Now, he got in a dogfight against Oklahoma State and lost. I do think that a lot of what he did for really put that on him. I mean, his team couldn't stop making mistakes. His quarterback the last 2 weeks has been under 50% completion percentage, guys. Had at least over 25 attempts in both. And they're finding ways to win because they play really good defense and they run the football with a really good running back and a really athletic quarterback. I do start asking the question, what happens if Arkansas loses this game to Texas A&M, and what the fan base is going to do? Because I start asking, if Sammy P does lose this game, boobs out and all, love Sammy P. Us old linemen, we got our man boobies, man. We gotta rock our man boobies. I really start asking the question of what that fan base and administration was going to want to do, especially if you lose a game when you've dominated at areas and you coach the game away. Guys, but I feel like Bobby Petrino and Sammy Pittman legitimately coached their way out of a win against Oklahoma State. They almost coached their way out of a win against Auburn. And ironically, it's the other coordinator that's been saving him, and he's on the defensive side of the football. I asked you in the beginning of this segment, what is week 5 going to be, or is it the biggest week in the SEC that we've had in quite some time? I do think that it has the chance to be, because if Hugh Freeze loses, what's the chirping going to be like coming out of Auburn? You know, I asked you about Kentucky when Mark Stoops, their coach was trying to go to Texas A&M. And they might not be able to score an offensive touchdown against a Power 4 opponent. Now what? And then I look at Arkansas and just ask the God's honest question. If they lose and it's because of coaching again, when they've had the talent, what is it going to say about Sam Pittman?